Hey everybody, Shawn Day with Higher Lead Chill. Got a special guest tonight. We're not going to get into labor market stuff tonight and in the intro. Full transparency, this is being recorded at 7 p.m.-ish on September 18th, 2025. And we'll probably run it as a, quote, live on the social platforms. Doing it for a couple reasons. One is I don't know how long this will go, and I don't want anybody getting fired and stuff because we're going to talk about some stuff that's been in the news. You know, we're going to talk about fatherhood. We're going to talk about some free speech stuff. We're going to talk about federal government, state rights stuff, and see where that takes us and what's going on with some things in the world out there. I am going to do my best to play a semi-neutral role. People that know me, I'm a pretty conservative guy. I'm a very conservative guy when it comes to financial stuff and taxes and stealing money and the government stealing my money and using it improperly. I'm pretty liberal socially, though. I'm not a real big fan of getting in the people's bedrooms and business like that. I don't believe in that at all. Do what you want to do as long as it's not something affecting a ton of people in a negative way and harmful and all that stuff. But I want to get into a little bit about that as well. There's some gray areas, I think, out there, that I'm going to be interested to hear people, if people watch this and comment on it. And I'll certainly be interested in Andrew's take on it. This is probably the third or fourth time I've had my nephew Andrew on. Growing up, his poor mother, my brother's wife, my sister-in-law at a young age said, Andrew and you are exactly alike. That was a scary thing growing up for her and raising him. So Andrew, why don't you introduce yourself, my good man, and we'll take it from there, man.
Hi. Like Shawn said, I'm his nephew, Andrew Day, and thanks for having me back. I believe this is the third time now.
Maybe third, yeah.
I think we started a year ago, or last May of 24, perhaps.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Your memory's better than mine, man. I know that.
So I'm going to guess May of 24.
So tell people a little bit more about like what you do, who you are, and all that stuff.
I'm a deputy sheriff with the Geauga County Sheriff's Office in Geauga County, Ohio, basically about an hour east of Cleveland, Ohio. It's a rural area. I've been doing that since December of 2020, and before that, I did about 8.5 years with the Ohio State Highway Patrol in the Shawn area, which is also about 45 minutes east of Cleveland.
Nice.
So altogether, I've been in law enforcement for about 13 years now, actually, as of a week ago.
Sweet. So you got an anniversary there.
Yeah, I guess I missed it. September 12th, 2012 was when I started.
All right, nice. So we're going to talk a little bit about some fatherhood stuff. Why don't you tell folks what's going on with your family?
So we'll start with I have now 3 daughters, but my oldest is 6. I have a 4-year-old, and then as of August 29th, I am the father of twins, 1 boy and 1 girl. So now I have a total of 4 children.
So you doubled it up like in a short amount of time, real short amount of time, I'm sure, right?
As you and I always text back and forth and talk about things in the blink of an eye, it goes by.
Yes,
and yes, in the blink of an eye, I went from 2 to 4, 3 girls, 1 boy.
What's their names?
So my oldest daughter is Valentina, and now my middle child is Luciana. And technically, I like to remind my wife, Serena, that my son is 4 minutes older than the sister. So my son is named Santino, and my youngest daughter's name is Sylvia.
Sylvia, nice. Okay. So you guys obviously knew you were having twins and all that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you think parenting has changed when you go from, sort of like zone defense to now you're you doubled up with 2 more kids. Now you're outnumbered, right? So what's that look like? And have you seen any changes in your 2 daughters that are 6 and how old is Lucy?
4.
4. Have you seen changes in them with jealousy or anything like that yet?
Yeah, I'll say slightly, and it's a little bit different because when my wife went into the hospital, I was still working. I was working the Geauga County Fair, which is the oldest fair in the state of Ohio. I think we're on the 203rd year. I think we just had it over Labor Day. I think it's 203rd. Don't quote me on it. But so she went in on Tuesday. I went downtown Tuesday night. I left work early and went downtown and then worked, I think, Wednesday, Thursday at the county fair. And then Friday, my twins were born. And then I went back to work at the fair Sunday, Monday, because they were born at 34 weeks. So they spent a little bit of time in the NICU and there wasn't a whole lot that I could do. So my wife just said, go back to work until they come home fully. And then I'll take my leave from work to be helping with everybody at home, including the oldest children.
Okay, cool.
So it's been a little hectic in terms of scheduling. School started back up. They were all out of sync because, we were going from downtown Cleveland. I was going to work. My wife wasn't home. My mother-in-law was gracious enough to help stay at our house and help get our oldest two out the door for school and stuff like that while I was working. So it was a little chaotic. So we're still kind of adjusting to the schedule. My family's only been home entirely together a week, actually 1 week ago today. Last Thursday was when my daughter Sylvia came home.
Tell me what you think might be different because you're a cop, you're a sheriff. Is there anything different that you do parenting wise or as a father that maybe somebody that isn't a policeman would do or not do?
Oh man. So, I work at night, so I'm up most of the night and my kids are my youngest, the twins are on a strict eating schedule. It's every 3 hours. So I'm up at midnight, 3 a.m. and then 6 a.m. I'm up for the entire day. So, I really just try to, when I was going to work, it's usually my oldest Valentina, I talk to, kisses, goodbye, love you. Same with Luciana. I try to keep that regimen every time because the truth of the matter is that, if I go to work, say tonight, there's a chance that I don't come home in the morning at 5 a.m. So I want that last, typically, other than the FaceTime and phone calls that they make before they go to bed, but that's typically the last thing I try to do before I walk out the door. Heaven forbid something happens to me, that's at least their last memory is a kiss and an I love you. So I would say that that's definitely something different than what other parents probably do. It's a huge question mark every time I go to work, whether or not I come home.
Right. Yeah, that's a fact, especially the way things are going on in the world today, more so than ever.
Yes.
What do you think is a little bit different than maybe what how your dad took his fatherhood and raised you compared to what you're doing with your kids?
At times I see it's almost kind of like deja vu. Like I feel like I've heard this before, but I'm the one saying it now. I'll never forget. It's a story that it's in my head. I don't even know how old I was, but it's like ingrained in my head. Me and my brothers are upstairs in our room messing around, doing something we probably shouldn't be doing, and probably peeving my mom off. And here comes my dad. And I'll never forget, he comes in yelling, and then I probably said something smart. So just like any other father would, grabs me by the shirt collar here and just looks at me dead in the eyes and says, "Your ass is grass," and then walks out the room. I'll never forget that. And I don't know why, it just makes me laugh. I was terrified at the time. But even things like, I don't think I've actually said that to my kids now, but I'm sure it's come across my head wanting to, but I'm trying not to cuss as much because they'll repeat it and I don't want them repeating it at school. But there's just a lot of things, basic stuff. Listen to your mother. I should only have to ask you once. Pick up your toys. We own in this house. We reward good behavior, not bad. Things like that. So there's a lot of similarities, and I just feel like that's just ingrained in me from the way that I was raised. And my wife Serena, she's somewhat similar. So it's just kind of something we're accustomed to that we're passing down. We try to limit electronics, cell phones, tablets, TV time, all that kind of nonsense. We didn't have that growing up, cell phones at least. We didn't have these smartphones like we did when we were now. So we're trying to limit that, and I'm really trying to work on like doing that, like starting out with just Sundays, no phone at all. Nice. And then see if we can expand it to the entire weekend. It's a little bit difficult with my job because I have a work cell phone and a personal cell phone. So I usually have two everywhere I go. So I don't know how I'm going to work that out yet at work, but I'm sure I can come up with something.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I find that's different is that the public school system doesn't teach, and we're in a pretty conservative area, doesn't teach quite the way they used to. There wasn't there's really no more disciplinary things that the kids probably need to face. There's a lot more parents going up to the school, and when their kids, when they went into the kids' locker and found a bag of dope or whatever, they blamed the school for going in and messing with the privacy of their child instead of getting on their child about having marijuana when they're 16. I've seen that happen. And just the things that they teach. We used to literally be taught citizenship, for example, handwriting, for example. And I get that. I get like cursive. I kind of get why cursive's going away. I understand that you're not using it very often. I understand, I'm back and forth on that, but I think more so like the discipline, the things that they're teaching them that are a little bit unnecessary. I think, there's a lot of time because of social media, I believe, and mental health is a lot different than what it used to be. Or maybe we're more aware of it now than we used to be, but it sure seems like there's a lot of more depression and anxiety and all these things. And I look back and I think about just in general, the way that the school system is set up comes from some prehistoric process. To have 5-6-year-old, especially young boys with a ton of energy, sitting in rows indoors for most of a day and are told not to move, not to fidget, to me, that is maybe one of the most ridiculous things I've ever, think about. If you think about that, who in the hell thought about putting rows of little boys in chairs and telling them not to fidget and move? And that to me is like almost torture. That's not acceptable. And I think we still do that in elementary school and that sort of thing. And you wonder why some of the kids are, we used to have recess. We used to get up. You used to walk down a hall. You used to get gym time. There were a lot of activities. I don't know what it's like today, but that sure seems like when a kid gets fidgety, there seems to be a lot more maybe prescription drugs instead of, maybe it's time we let him get up and walk around and do something else for him. I don't know necessarily what the answer is, but I know that's not a good way to raise kids in an education system.
Yeah. I'm 35 and I can't sit still just talking to you for 30 seconds. I'm moving around. I'm constantly doing something. I got a pen in my hand. I don't know why. It's just whatever. Yeah. Probably because I'm jotting notes. Probably because I'm jotting notes over on my pad over here that I have notes on for conversation topics and stuff like that. But yeah, young boys should not be sitting still for more than probably 20 minutes at a time. A couple weeks ago, my brother-in-law was in from New York, and we put on a wrestling camp, or I should say he did. I did. I was his beat up dummy. Right. And I took my daughters there, and we saw. I think we had a group of like 25 maybe kids, and they're all young. Very, very basic 5-6-year-olds. You can't keep their attention for more than 7 to 10 minutes at all. Right. And then you're losing them. So having kids sit down for a class 50 minutes out of an hour with a 10-minute break, at that age that's nonsense. They need to get outside and burn energy.
Big time. Yep. They sleep better. They're not thinking about the crazy thoughts that we all think about too much and things like that. And you start getting lost in your thinking and, and just feeling like you're tied down, man. You should be able to go at it. All right. So let's pivot into something else. I'm not going to, the last thing I'll say is I wish I could, I wish I would have been able to spend more time with my kids talking about how to get along with yourself and how to how to just kind of realize that your thoughts aren't always reality. It's like, if 90 people are in the room and 89 of them come up to you and say you're the best thing on earth, and one says something different, don't focus on the one that said you're an asshole. I mean, and we do that as human beings, right? And kids get in trouble when they do that sort of thing. Because one thing I do know for sure, and adults do too. I mean, it's not something that's just it's something kids struggle with, adults struggle with it. And I know this for sure. I've learned that I've got to get along with myself, because for whatever reason, everywhere I go, frickin' Shawn Day's always showing up there. I don't know how to get rid of them, right? So you better damn well get along with them, or you're going to be in a hell of a lot of trouble. I don't have to get along. I always try to teach my kids kindness. Every human being deserves some dignity, so on and so forth, whatever their views are on life and so on. Doesn't mean you have to hang out with them. Doesn't mean you just be loving and kind and give some dignity. Does not mean you need to be steamrolled either. If somebody's giving you some shit or somebody hits you, you clock them until somebody grabs you. I mean, you don't have to take somebody punching you in the face, okay? Obviously, that's a problem. So I wish I would have been able to maybe do that. I wish I had like a family creed with like something on the wall with just art, stuff like that you could go back to. The things I teach like really young business owners are sort of those leadership skills and those sort of what are your values, and know those values and try to live by those values. There's something, to be said about that at a young age.
Yeah, I'm trying to teach my oldest now, Valentina. She seems to get a lot of worry about everything. She was like, just this morning, I was getting her ready for school, trying to get her out the door. She's talking about this library book that she got some water on. She's worried that it's going to get like moldy or ruin the paper. And the book was completely dry, but she couldn't get it out of her head, and it just kept eating at her. And I'm trying to get her to be able to control herself first, and to basically calm herself down. I should be telling myself that at 35. I'm still working on it. I'm 6 years old, for goodness sake. But just simple things like that is the one thing that you can control is the self, you. You can't control everything else around you, but you can center yourself, and trying to get, especially her. And then when his time comes, my son, Santino, he'll have to learn that as well. I mean, all my kids will, but boys are a little bit different. And trying to teach them the same things of, you want to be kind to everybody. You want kind people to be around you. And she'll learn some lessons eventually about people that aren't going to be kind and that are maybe going to try to put some hands on you and some things like that. But she's only 6. We'll get to that eventually. But we just need to work on the self right now. Control yourself, control your temper, control your emotions right now, because that's the biggest hurdle we're starting to see already. Even at 6 years old, is just some of the things I wouldn't even have thought of at 6 years old. I was sitting there playing Batman or believing I was Batman, and she's over here about lip balm and skincare stuff. I don't even know what any of that means.
Right. I mean, it's like what do people say? Like the new 60 is a 50, and it's like these 6 or 7 year old is like a 10 or 11 year old nowadays. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm terrified for my future with 3 girls that are going to be teenagers here.
Well, you should let them know to tell everybody they can that your dad's a cop. Maybe that'll help. The boys off
I got a nice dining room table here.
So let's get into some free speech stuff. Okay. Obviously, I think there's in every aspect, and it's a weird thing to have free speech be a political thing. It seems like a lot of things are political things now, but I guess if it's in the Constitution of the United States, and it's pretty much the very first thing the fathers thought and about that. And for all you people out there that I happen to believe, for example, John Adams was one of my favorite founding fathers, and John Adams would not have existed the way we know him in history if it wasn't for his wife Abigail. So all of you women out there that might yell at me because there's founding fathers and nothing, and God's a she and all that stuff, okay, I think that Abigail Adams should have been one of the founding mothers of the country, because what she did on the farm and everything else was just there, we would not have free speech without some of that stuff behind the scenes. With that said, okay, it's that I over exaggerated something right there to present today's world. right? That was something nobody would have had to think about or say. Even I don't even think maybe 12 years ago, 15, not 50 years ago, but even maybe 15 or 20 years ago, I don't think, right?
Yeah, so I really started, we'll say I started getting involved in politics in 2018 for whatever reason, flipped on the tube and something caught my eye. It was actually the Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings. Really caught my eye and I ran off with it. And I asked my wife, it consumes my day. I listen to news nonstop all day long. My kids even recognize it.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it piqued my interest. And free speech it is the First Amendment of the Constitution, quite an important document, one of the founding documents of our country. And, I think it was Justice Scalia that said it says what it says and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. It is what it is. And they were so wise to make
that's a debate, right? You've got the other side of that coin where it's a little bit more fluid. You've got Supreme Court justices that it's more fluid. How do you,
yes.
The founding fathers would have never been able to conceive that we would be talking live through a screen right now. It would be considered black magic to them, probably. How can you have a document, I guess, I'm playing devil's advocate here because I'm a big Justice Scalia fan myself. How do you square that up? How can you be a fortune teller and write a document that's supposed to be around for, the rest of the time?
That's a great question. Makes me kind of think that we'll never see gentlemen like that ever again. To be that forward thinking. I mean, what was their definition of speech back then? Was it written? Right. Was it verbal? Was it all encompassing? I mean, I think that's where, they say that this internet thing, us talking right now, that counts as that freedom of the press. Or was that just in paper? Or is that live TV? Is that me with this phone walking up to you on the sidewalk and talking, and now I'm all of a sudden I'm an independent news reporter? I think it's a broad term and probably by design. To encompass everything that we now see today.
And I think they tend to lean. I think they're thinking. There's two things that come to mind as we talk about this. One is I think, in part, from things I've read about the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, the Federalists, and all that stuff, is I think they wanted to err on the side of free speech is free speech. Say whatever the hell you want to whoever the hell you want. Okay, they seem to be more conservative in the rights of individuals and not the government stepping on those rights. Right. Yeah. Now, the other thing is they were brilliant enough to come up with this thing we call amendments. And I tend to think that half of this country or more forgets that we can change the Constitution. Okay. You don't do it by going, what we tend to sidestep that nowadays and go directly to the court system instead of amending it. And it comes from a lot of cowardice from our legislators. And it's, Roe versus Wade, the abortion thing comes to mind. Why is that something that needed to go to the Supreme Court? Where are the legislators to say, yes, this is legal or this is not legal? I mean, you've got probably next to slavery, the most important thing this country's faced that's divided the country is abortion. And they can't come up with the legislators can't come up with a law that's the law of the land. So I think the amendment process is a good thing. But boy, the courts are deciding a lot of things.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what that thing was where they talk about the bill passages. What was that? Schoolhouse Rock? Is that what that thing was?
Yeah.
And they talk about how it goes through and actually becomes ratified. It seems like maybe some of the legislators down there in DC need to rewatch that and learn the process about what their job is actually to do. Because the courts shouldn't be deciding these things. I mean, they should be deciding disputes between the branches of government. An Article 3 court should be deciding disputes between the executive and the legislator. That's what they're for. And you see sometimes the judiciary kind of writing some laws or maybe hinting at some things. I mean, come to mind that basically it was the Roe v. Wade was, they always say that it was pulled from one strand and they made a quilt out of it. And it was like the 14th Amendment, and all of a sudden that's how Roe v. Wade was decided by the privacy thing. And then you have like Obamacare with the tax with Chief Justice Roberts. So some things like that probably should not have happened. But I mean, nobody's going to want to rock the boat when they kind of came from the Supreme Court, one of the justices, because it's going to go back to them. So it's just kind of an endless cycle. And you have the same people coming in and out of DC anyway, through the courts, over to the executive branch or the legislative branch, over to the executive branch, then to the judiciary. So it's kind of a revolving door of people that are just not getting anything done.
Right. So there are gray areas, though, in the laws and in the Constitution. So free speech, I think, can be one of them, right? We all heard, most of us know you can't yell fire in the theater, right? That's not free speech to cause panic like that. That's something that, that we need to, think about.
Well, but I think sometimes people, because I hear that a lot, but I think people forget the second half of that, because if I'm not mistaken, the second half says you can't yell fire in a crowded theater if there's no fire. Everybody says you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, but if there's a fire, well, hell, I better be yelling it. So everybody kind of cuts it off there and then just sidesteps everything else. And it's like, well, no, that's not really what was decided. Tell at least the full story, or at least, give the full quote. But yes, you can't just yell it for no reason.
Here's another one that is interesting to your point earlier about what did they mean by speech? Is it written? Is it typed? Is it broadcast? Is it smoke signals? What is free speech? Well, from what I understand, I might be wrong, but burning the flag is free speech. I think that is under free speech. If I'm right, I don't know how that is speech. If we looked up the word speech in the dictionary, I don't know that. I would think the word verbal or audio or something like that may be there. I'd be curious to do more research on that to see what the founding fathers would have to say about that. Although we can't do that, that's a whole different ball of wax with burning the flag. That's free speech.
And I actually think that was a Scalia, not a dissent, but his majority opinion on that. I think that was actually him that said that is an expression of freedom of speech. So I think, like I said, I think it's broad intentionally to encompass everything. Right. And that's what makes it so difficult to establish certain laws or something. Like obviously I'm very clearly against burning the US flag by any means, but it's an expression. Yeah. So it is what it is. And I'm SOL. I have to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about other things like gray area free speech stuff? So you've got, people, I think it's an ignorant, and I wouldn't even debate anybody on the fact that, well, you should be able to say whatever when somebody gets shot, for example, and say whatever you want. But I think they forget that people don't have to put up with your free speech. I don't have to agree with it, and I can make actions to help alleviate you not doing that anymore. And you don't have free speech to come to my company and say I'm an asshole and expect to keep your job, okay? Or calling your customers an asshole or something like that. That's free speech. You have the right to do things, folks, but you don't have the right to be a narcissist and think everybody has to accept it.
Right, and one of the newest examples is what's that late night guy, Jimmy Kimmel, who just got suspended or fired or whatever's going on with him. I don't care for him anyway, but he can say whatever he wants. But he works for a company who has rules. Right. If you don't follow the rules, you get in trouble. At my job, if I don't follow the rules, I get in trouble. So there's always consequences to what you do. You can say what you want, but you have to accept the consequences that come with it. If you are employed by somebody, you still have standards. And a good example that I like to use is with my job in law enforcement. A lot of times we get people that call to report threatening, harassment, things of that nature. When I get there, I read the text messages or the verbal things said to them. And a lot of times it's I say it's quite vague. Someone may say, I wish death to Andrew Day. Okay, well, that's a vague threat. Or I wish Andrew to do harm to Andrew Day. That's vague. But if John Smith says, I'm going to go up to Andrew Day and I'm going to stab him with a knife in a half an hour at his house. Now, that is a direct threat. That's the suspect telling the intended victim, me, his means and intention to do harm to me. So that is an actual criminal offense. Where something just vague is nothing. That's words. That's nothing. That can't do any sticks and stones. But a means to actually do it is the criminal offense itself. So, a lot of times that's where a lot of people get confused, and I have to explain that to them. It's quite vague. He actually has to, someone has to actually state the harm they intend to do to you in a manner in which they're going to do it.
So if I say, man, I'm going to kill that son of a bitch, is a lot different than, man, I'm going to kill him. I got a knife and I'm going over there Thursday and I swear to God, I'm going to kill him. Is that the same freedom of speech, or are those two different things?
No, I think those are two different things. One, the one, we'll say, a lot of people
real quick, because there is a line between it is free speech to say something, but there are consequences for it, and there are like Jimmy Kimmel or whatever. And not everybody has to listen to your speech either. That's one thing, but it's not illegal. So you're talking about a legal speech versus not illegal speech.
Yeah, a legal speech is me just getting on this podcast right now, saying whatever I feel like saying. So that's completely legal. Now, I may have consequences because in my job, I actually have policies I have to follow when it comes to expressing myself to the public, because no matter even if I'm in my own home and doing this, I still am a representative of the sheriff's office, and I have rules I have to follow even when I'm not at work at all times. Now, if I say that I'm going to intentionally do harm to somebody and I have the means in which to do it, that is the criminal offense.
Okay.
So if Jimmy Kimmel, if I just say, you know what, I'm sick and tired of hearing what that guy says, I just hope he goes away forever. It's pretty much kind of considered that I wish he would die, right? But that's so vague that there's no criminality to that. Okay. But if I say, I'm really sick and tired of hearing Jimmy Kimmel, I'm going to drive out to wherever he lives, let's just say New York, and I'm going to look up his address, and I'm going to take a gun, and I'm going to shoot him in the head. Now that is an intent to harm him. That is a criminal offense.
Yeah. What about another gray area with free speech, I think, is when, and this happened either with police or military, during the funeral service, 8 people are across the street while the family is trying to mourn the loss of a loved one, and they're chanting horrible, horrible, horrible things about that person's death. Is that free speech?
So if they're in a public place, you don't have a right to privacy. They can, if they're across the street, they can shout whatever they want. If I'm on a traffic stop and somebody's across the street on a sidewalk yelling, ranting, raving, call me every name under the sun, it is what it is. I'm in a public place. I have no expectation of privacy as long as they're not interfering in what I do, because I am conducting an official act at that point, a traffic stop. They're not interfering. They can do what they want. Okay,
but I would challenge that with this scenario then. If I'm in a restaurant and I'm with my children and some lunatic is F-bombing left and right, not drunk, not just they're an asshole, they're F-bombing, they're saying, man, I can't stand this, that, my boss isn't that, whatever it is, my kid, or starts talking about pornography when my kids are there very loudly. That's a public place. Is that free speech?
Well, but that's also a private entity, whether the business that you are in is private. You can go to the manager and ask for that individual to be removed. If the manager wants that individual removed, and then that individual says, I ain't leaving, you can't make me, and then law enforcement's called, he's then told by the manager again to leave, or he'll be cited with criminal trespass. If he doesn't want to leave, he's going to be charged with criminal trespass, at least for the state of Ohio. Okay. I'll talk for that. But yeah, that the business is the private entity itself. So that's a little bit different. The manager can ask somebody to leave all they want. They don't even have to give a reason. They could just not want you there, really. I mean, not a whole lot of people do that, but if you're causing a ruckus at my restaurant, I'm going to tell you to get out because you're disturbing the rest of my customers, and that's revenue I'm losing out for the night. I don't care about your revenue. I care about the 100 other people that are in here.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, that person can be asked to leave.
Interesting. Okay. I'm trying to think if there's other. So the Charlie Kirk stuff happened. Obviously, anybody that's heard it, not living under a rock has heard about it. I don't think there's a debate to logical people. I don't think can debate that he has a right to free speech. Where it gets goofy for me is the hyperbole, the over-exaggeration, the sound bites to make a point. I watched a few things with Charlie Kirk. I thought he was fine. I will personally tell you that I know of two people in our industry that I serve, both of which had a child that was born a biological male that now identifies as a female. And I know both of those children, and I know the parents. And I have told both of them that I love them. And the one's an adult. I said, to his mom, when she announced it basically on social media a number of years back, I remember having a beer with that son of hers when he was identifying, or at least was not identifying as a female yet. And we had beer and stuff. And I told the mom, I said, make sure you let her know I'd be happy to have a beer with her and let her know I love her. Okay. Now, I don't believe biological men should be playing in women's sports. A mature adult that doesn't have primal thinking understands you can have both of those things at the same time. And it's not hate speech. And it's not, I'm not transphobic. Okay. What I just said is true to the core. Okay. On both things. Yet I will have people lined up around the corner telling me I'm a transphobe, I'm a hater, and I got hate speech. Yeah. And I'm starting to think that it is no longer just on the fringe. Okay. I'm starting to think it's becoming a little bit commonplace. And I think that's where the scariness comes in.
Yeah. So I've listened to Charlie for a while. And it was very unfortunate, obviously, what happened to him. And it sucked because I used to watch him quite often. And I'll still listen to his podcast because I understand that his wife just became CEO of Turning Point, and they're going to continue the podcast. And they've had some guests on this week, like Glenn Beck and Megyn Kelly and things like that. I actually just listened to earlier. And you don't have to, obviously, you don't have to agree with what he says, but that's what freedom of speech is. It's to protect things that you don't like to hear. You can always walk away. You can always turn off the TV, change the channel, put down your phone, or like at a lot of his events at these colleges, you can go debate him in a civilized manner. The problem is, obviously, you cannot take it to a place of violence. That is where we don't. That's where we don't go. Speech is fine. Speech is great. Debate is great. Heated debate is wonderful. But violence is never acceptable. And it's. I don't care if it's Charlie or if it's Nancy Pelosi. I don't care. I don't agree with just about anything she says, but she can say whatever she wants. It doesn't bother me one bit. I'll change the channel. I'll turn her out. I'll turn her off. Hi. Can you say hi real quick?
Hi.
Okay. Hi. Say hi real quick, please.
Hi.
Hi. How you ladies doing?
Can you say good? How are you?
Go take care of those babies. You got new babies in the house to take care of.
Go see the babies, please. Let Daddy finish. Go wash up. Go wash up. You just got back from gymnastics. Go wash up. Go. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
All right, so yeah, there's just a snippet of some of the things that fatherhood for me ends there.
What got hit when you said "ow"?
She fell under the armpit.
Oh, all right.
Luciana did. Going back to like Nancy Pelosi, I don't agree probably with anything she says, but she can say whatever she wants. Doesn't bother me one bit. I change the channel or I tune her out. I don't care. I tough skin. It doesn't bother me what she says. She's got a following. She represents a district in California. Good for her. I don't wish her any harm whatsoever. I wish that she would leave politics because I think she's been in there about 1,000 years too long. But right. Okay, they keep electing her, so stay in. It still makes no difference to me what she does.
Right. What about? So I think most people realize that it shouldn't go to violence, except the ones that are really, really cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay, so I don't think that's commonplace. I don't think that's gotten in the mainstream of people's beliefs. But there is a level of hatred for human beings that hasn't been there our entire existence in this country. And I'll give you some examples, at least for me. I didn't vote for Bill Clinton, but I thought Bill Clinton was a great politician. He worked across the aisle with Newt Gingrich. They didn't like each other a hell of a lot. I know he lied under oath, which is a federal offense, but I don't think he should have been impeached for what he did. He basically lied to cover up cheating on his wife. I don't think that is something that the United States Congress should be bringing up and embarrassing the country over. I don't think that's affecting the military. I don't think it's affecting our security, taxes, policy at all. Okay, it's not a treasonous thing to trap a president of the United States into lying about cheating on his wife. I just think that was ridiculous. Why people don't see how ridiculous Trump being impeached twice is, and the level of hatred that they have for this guy. I get that he's an a-hole. I get that he says stupid things. I get that he's called one of the most cringing things that he has said that I totally wish he wouldn't have said. And I have voted for him, okay, was when he said something to the effect about John McCain. I prefer my heroes not to be captured, okay? John McCain was a POW for 5 years, tortured for 5 years. He's considered American hero, okay? I cringe when he said that. I don't hate him for it, but I sure as hell, if I was in the room, would have probably walked out or would have said, you know what, dude, I don't care who you think you are. I don't want to hear that out of anybody's mouth. I mean, that was upsetting to me. And I'm sure there's other things, but I don't know that doesn't incite violence, okay? That didn't tell somebody that he was a Nazi, that he's killing people, that he is a threat to democracy. It's going to be democracy. This country is going to go to hell in a handbasket, and there's no more. It's going to be, he's a fascist, right? It's going to be a totalitarianism is going to no. It's a stupid, idiotic thing to say, which is a lot different than inciting things that go to the level of violence and hatred and over exaggerating fearful things that could happen. So that's where my thing is on it. I'd love to hear your view on that.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. There's always going to be sound bites, gotcha words, catchphrases, things like that. That are, attention getters for politicians to use to campaign. I get that. But, at some point, someone along the line has to realize that you can only call somebody, like you said, the fascist, the Nazi, you can only, threat to democracy or crisis, constitutional crisis was another one they like to use. You can only call people things like that so long until somebody takes a shot at them. And look what happened last year. It was a boiling point to where somebody that clearly wasn't thinking, correctly says, it's my time to do something to stop this man, because if not, he is going to end our democracy. No, he's not.
Right.
No matter what stupid stuff he says, he's not going to end it. 4 years, it's going to continue. He can print any, was it Trump 2028 hat or shirts he wants. He's not going to be there in 3 years. He knows it. It's all, now he's just egging on the media at that point. But my point is that, it's words. At some point, though, we have to understand that our words may trigger others out there to action.
Right.
And we have to be careful with that, especially when you have national news media appearances, things like that, where you're going to be seen all around the country, all around the world. You have to be real careful with your words, and you can't just fly off the handle and say things like that, because this is what it's going to lead to. I'm not sure what other outcome people thought was going to happen. Maybe I didn't expect it to happen to Charlie, but I mean, who didn't think that someone was going to take a pop at President Trump or candidate Trump at the time? Yeah, and then there's all other things with that whole scenario in terms of Butler, PA in general, but they only fuel the fire with their words for so long that somebody took it to action, and we have to understand that our words have consequences at times.
What about I mean, it's already in a place where people, I haven't seen this kind of outrage, especially on the Republican side, in a long time. Long time. That's kind of new. It's kind of new, like that Disney, which is not considered a super backing of the conservative movement by any means.
No.
Is the one that basically owns, the network that Kimmel got in trouble with, and so on and so forth. Yeah. I don't know that we would all be super surprised in a year if another shooting happened for political speech. Where do you possibly go from that? I don't know where you go from there.
I mean, unfortunately, you're going to see all these speeches be just like this then. I'm going to, in the back of their bedroom, in their own home, because they can't go out in public, afraid someone's going to pop a shot off at them, or they're going to be in like legit a bubble,
right,
with ballistic glass as they're giving a speech, sitting in a chair, so they're in that little cubicle that hopefully can save them if someone were to shoot at them. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's sad, because if I don't like, whoever who was on Kamala Harris, I didn't like, I did not support her at all. Didn't vote for her. Haven't voted for a Democrat my entire adult life. But I just don't go to a rally of hers. I don't watch it when it's streamed live. That's how I deal with that. I don't care what she has to say. I mean, I listen to what she will say because I want to hear the other side, in a debate or whatnot, but she can say what she wants. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. I'm never going to take it to violence. It's just not a thought that comes to my head. I'm a rational thinking individual most of the time. Although there may be times that if you ask my wife, I act irrational, but I never am going to take it.
Yeah, speech is not violence, and I think that a lot of people started to believe that what they would call hate speech, number one, is not violence. But that is an accepted thing in college campuses, that hate speech is violence, and it's just not. And I think that's part of the problem as well. I remember reading a book by Peggy Noonan about Ronald Reagan, When Character Was King, I think is the name of it. And he was a Democrat before he was a conservative Republican, as he was known to most people in the world. But he was a Democrat, and what changed his mind in general was that he literally saw the Communist Party try to change our country, and the three pillars that they went after, and he knows this because he was the president of the Actors Guild or the Actors Union. Okay, so he saw the three places that, and he went to meetings where communists were freely saying, this is what we're trying to do to take over America and to change America, because they're a threat to communism at that time, back in the 50s and 60s and so on, and throughout his term in the 90s during the Cold War. And it was Hollywood, because everybody sees Hollywood and they're famous, and that's number one. The media was number two, and college campuses were number three. So that's been around, and they've been digging at that for years and years. So that whole thing could be a whole nother topic. I want to pivot real quick as we've been in free speech for a while. I want to talk about how conservatives and Republicans think it's okay to use the federal police, called the National Guard, and some others. ICE is a little bit different, but how is it that the federal government, it's okay to send people to DC or Chicago when the state doesn't want you there, when the mayor doesn't want you there, when the governor doesn't want you there, the Democratic side? What happened to conservatives and Republicans believing in state rights more so than big federal government?
So the National Guard is not a federal police. They are a branch of the military. They are usually, most of the time, under the authority of the governor of each state. However, they can be federalized and used on a national level. I'm actually a huge fan of using them because what they are trained in, especially, is civil disturbance. So I would be more, and I think that's what they're doing, although it might not get worded correctly. But I think that's what they're doing is they're saying we are going to federalize the National Guard in California, while our federal agents, whether it be FBI, ATF, DEA, HSI, ICE, and the EROs, which is the enforcement removal division, are out there arresting illegal aliens. And while our federal agents are enforcing their job, or enforcing federal laws, which is their job, Congress, thank you, we're going to use the National Guard to keep them safe from civil disturbances, i.e. the public surrounding them, hindering them from enforcing the laws and obstructing their official duties. So they're not there arresting people, but they're there to keep the disturbance off the agents enforcing the laws enacted by Congress. If Congress doesn't like the laws, change them. That's what you are there for. You are the legislative branch. You write the laws. The executive enforces the laws. So if you don't like them, change them. Otherwise, leave us the hell alone. Governor Newsom, you can't get your way with everything. California, I'm sorry, there are nice places in California. They got nice views, but overall their law enforcement actions, I'll call it, are crap. They don't enforce the laws. They got garbage on the streets. They got homeless on the streets, drug areas. No, come on. This is America. We don't have that kind of garbage here. We have rules. We have rules to maintain order. And if President Trump, in this case, wants to federalize the National Guard to enforce federal laws, he's got every right to do so, and the governor can't do boo about it. I mean, Governor Newsom already lost that court case. Trump won that. If President Trump sticks to that and says that we're going to use National Guard to decrease civil disturbances so our federal agents can enforce the laws enacted by Congress, I think he's golden all day long. I think that's what he's doing, but it's not getting worded as graciously as I think. And a lot of times it's just it's those words that are clickbait or hyperbole. But I'm all for that. I'm 100% for that. Where if I'm just going to say I'm going to use the National Guard to enforce laws in Chicago, well, no, that's not what the National Guard's for. They specialize in civil disturbances. You use them for that, which I think they are. I do think they are, but I don't think it's being worded correctly.
Was the National Guard called into any college campuses that you know of? I don't know if they were or not. I know Trump was
not as of lately.
Okay.
But, I mean, Penn State had the National Guard brought in. What was that? May 4th of the 70s? Was it early 70s? Maybe.
70s. Yeah. And
so the National Guard was used then.
Four college kids got shot and killed.
Yeah.
And there's a song that was written about that. Fort in Ohio. So
they've been used for disturbances before. We used them. They were used for the RNC when it was in Cleveland in 2016. We had law enforcement from all around the country used in downtown Cleveland. You're talking thousands of police from Las Vegas, Chicago, federal agents, state, local, doesn't matter. They were all authorized and deputized to be there. So you can keep Cleveland safe for a weekend.
Right.
Why don't you just take that and broaden it to a city that clearly needs help? Chicago needs help. The residents are asking for help.
Yeah.
The government is not.
Great, man. God,
I mean, and DC is DC is a little bit different than like Chicago, Cleveland, San Francisco. It's different.
You've got one of our, I don't know if, I think it's a state legislator that just announced today or yesterday in Ohio here that they want the National Guard possibly coming to Cleveland. Now, we've been downtown Cleveland to football games, baseball games, casinos. I don't see what I see on television in other large cities in Cleveland. The only thing I remember ever in Cleveland as of late was like the motorcycle kind of young teenage kids riding motorcycles all over the place, and the police were told not to chase them down.
Yeah.
But I didn't see a lot of major burning downs of buildings and protests, and I don't think the death rate is like in the top 10 or anything like that. I might be wrong. I don't know. But I don't know why you would call the National Guard.
I don't think it is per capita. I would not be for just sending them in to crack down on things like that. Like I said, I'm more for curtailing to specific needs. I've worked some operations where we've partnered with federal agents in downtown Cleveland, and it was a crackdown on everything. Guns, drugs, traffic, you name it. It was just a crackdown. We did it for a weekend. I mean, I'd be for that if you're going to say, okay, we are still going to use the National Guard to stop civil disturbances so law enforcement can do their job. I think that's the way to go. Just saying we want the National Guard in there to enforce us, well, they can't do that. They don't have police powers. They don't have police training. That doesn't make any sense, and that's not a good idea. And that's not an objective that should be wanted. Maybe use them to, if you have, let's just say you have a house that local law enforcement's bust and it has like 30 people in there you can be charged in. Maybe the National Guard has a vehicle that can transport all 30 at once, and just for the transport to the local jail, maybe I can see that. But outside of that, their job should just be civil disturbance in order for whether it's federal or state agencies to do their job and enforce the laws. I think that's where it needs to stay.
Okay. So I've heard some concerns about Trump sort of doing almost underhanded in a way where some of the problem is that ICE is all over the sanctuary cities, and ICE has been called up like they've never been called up before, right? To take care of illegal immigration and protecting the country from rapists and murderers of specifically immigrants, illegal immigrants. And is that the underlying reason, or one of the reasons, that he is maybe strategically using the National Guard to protect ICE, because ICE is going through a lot of, they're getting shot at, they're getting, they're getting their life threatened. Is that a proper use?
The Chicago one got shot.
Right.
I think in Chicago one just got shot. I think maybe he got killed. I'm not positive on that, but I know he got shot, him or her. Well, yeah, I absolutely would be doing that if I was him. 100% I would be doing that. They're getting what they call it now, doxed, where their home addresses are being put online. That's why they wear face masks and cover up most of their features. And you can only see from about here. They don't want to be identified because there is harm that is being brought upon them for simply doing their job, which, again, Congress enacted the laws. All the executive branch is doing is enforcing them. If you don't like it, change them. Tom Homan says it all the time. It's that simple. You don't like it, change it. However, this administration, the Trump administration, is going to enforce those laws vigorously, and they're not going to stop. The easiest solution at this point is to allow ICE access to the local jails where it can be transferred, the illegal alien, from the local to the federal right then and there in a secure facility. Once they go outside, it's a wild card. You don't know what's going to happen. And if they are found and other illegal aliens are with them that maybe don't have criminal offenses but maybe overstayed a visa, they're going to go too, because they're going to enforce the laws as they are written. If you don't want that, let them have access to the jails. Everybody's safe that way.
I think the other point with ICE is I don't know this to be true, but it's been reported that about 50% of ICE is Hispanic.
They terrorize illegal aliens terrorize their own community. I don't understand how that's not simple logic to them. If you don't want them there in the community, get them out. When they say, take back your streets, that's what it should be. Get the criminals out. Get them out. The ones that are strong arming you, the ones that are polluting your community with drugs, get them the hell out of there. Help out, and then it all goes away. That's how it is. It's a big broom that's coming through and sweeping the area of everything.
Being in the recruiting game specifically for mostly blue collar type of workers, the summer it's loosened up us a little bit, but the summer was extremely tight with the blue collar labor market for a number of reasons, immigration being one of them. Okay, what has happened is the good news is manufacturing is coming back. There's billions and billions of dollars that were promised by companies like GE Aerospace, Siemens, of course, Amazon warehouses are being built all over the place, right? Who builds these buildings and who builds the manufacturing? Blue collar construction people. Who supplies them with all of their materials? People that are selling blue collar in warehouses do all that stuff, right? So what's happened is that the government not only came down on illegal immigration, so there's not a flood of workers coming over that would be hired. They're also cracking down big time on both big corporations and small businesses like landscapers and people like that typically weren't so nervous about bringing somebody on and hiring them. Now they're very nervous about that. So there is I know it for sure because I'm in the business. There's a big problem with labor because of that. Well, I know and agree that you've got to get horrible people out of the country that are illegally here. Okay, if they're horrible, got to go. If they're doing horrible things, murdering, raping, and so on, and trafficking and fentanyl and those sort of things. But somewhere along the line, the government has got to face the fact that we've got to come up with a way to get people in here that are good people that would do good things for the country, that would pay and get on the tax roll and all that stuff. And we don't have that right now. We simply don't. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but there's got to be a better, faster way to screen these people.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if there's been a study or if there's been numbers run that they kind of have a general idea of. I'm willing to bet that most individuals that would be quote unquote illegal aliens that are working in landscape, or let's say like the Hyundai factory that just got raided, where it was like 400 or 500 individuals were located there, and places like that. I'm willing to bet that those people are actually here to better themselves, at least the majority of them. Yeah. Criminals don't want actual jobs. They don't want to pay taxes. They want to, prey on good individuals, like maybe those other ones that are working at the factories and construction, blue collar individuals. So I'm curious to see is whether or not there's any numbers on that, because I'm willing to bet that the numbers are probably higher in the fact that there's actually quote unquote illegal aliens here that are actually here for the right reasons and clearly don't want to go back, than criminals. But again, I think the problem becomes is where we say, or law enforcement's going to say, well, we're looking at the criminals, the worst of the worst. But if you're just here illegally and you're just with the worst of the worst, well, you're going to go too because you're here illegally. Help us because we want this guy. We want A. We don't want B. So help us get A and we'll leave B alone. I'm also a fan. I don't remember who. I think it was during a congressional hearing. I think it was Representative Swalwell from California with Ben Shapiro talking about immigration, illegal aliens, and something. If you're already here illegally, you should be taxed. So you can then become a citizen. And Ben Shapiro talked about something about it. Well, as long as they go to the back of the line instead of somebody who's been through in the process already. I am a fan of if you're here and you want to be taxed for 10 years so you can pay towards your citizenship, things like that. Yeah. I think we might have talked about this before on a podcast, but I'm a fan of that. I think that solves some problems. Yeah. Do a 10-year, just like any loan, do like a 10-year payment plan with them so they can pay to get towards their citizenship. And then after 10 years, as long as they don't commit any criminal offenses or anything like that, they pay the taxes, they get their, the due process going in and everything like that. And they're not a burden on society and, withdraw, burn on our tax dollars. Come on in. Good to go. Here we go. I like that idea a lot more than just a free for all. And now you're a burden on the taxpayer.
Right.
And you're drawing on those public expenses.
It can almost be a separate tax specifically on immigrants that are coming in that want to become U.S. citizens.
And with this, the one big beautiful bill, I'm still trying to figure out. I know that it's a deduction, but I'm trying to figure out how they're going to do that. If you can do it for that, you sure as hell can do it for an illegal alien who wants to become a U.S. citizen as a tax. You can do that.
I think part of the problem is, and I talked to my cousin Matt, who married somebody from out of the country who wanted to get citizenship here, and he's got the resources to, and the money to do it. What needs to be taken care of, and like he said, Shawn, I've lived here all my life. My dad was a Vietnam vet. My grandpa was a World War II vet. I've lived here all my life. I'm marrying a woman from out of the country and Paraguay. And it's been a nightmare trying to even figure out how to get her to become a legal citizen. And this is somebody with resources. I think the lawyer fees are outrageous. I think but you've got to have one if you want to get anywhere near a reasonable amount of time to become an immigrant. So there's a lot of goofy things that are bottlenecking that, and most of it has to do with money, attorneys, and again. The government bureaucracy of it.
Yeah, the government definitely is a burden on people for sure. Less government, the happier I am. I'm big on the government takes too much, and tries to claw their ways into my door way too much. So yeah, I'm all about small government. So yeah, they're a problem. It is a problem. There's the legality, the red tape, the lawyer's fees, no matter what it is way too high. Right. I get it, specialized, a specialized, whatever you want to call it, job, whatever I'm trying to think of. But I feel like we want people to come here. We want people to come here the right way. Why not streamline the process and still be able to do the backgrounds and make sure they're not an issue or anything like that? But the process should be more of a straight line than zig and zagging all the way to the finish line. Right.
Yeah, let's get rid of the fentanyl. Let's get rid of the criminals that come over here and harm us. And then I'm in the sex trafficking. Get rid of all that nastiness, and you've got some really good people that can help us grow the economy. And we need that because one of the reasons that Social Security and eventually Medicare is going to be in more trouble than ever is because the birth rate has slowed down so much. It was nothing to have, your grandma, my mom, comes from 14 siblings. I mean, that's unheard of today, right? So there's like a ton of married people. First of all, there's a lot of people not getting married, and there's a lot of people not having children. And that the whole Ponzi scheme and that's what it is. Social Security and Medicare is a Ponzi scheme where the young generation pays for the elderly once they're collecting their Social Security checks. When you screw that up and you have that unbalance especially with the baby boomers, which they're still around, they're coming towards the end of it, but the birth rate is killing jobs, the job market, the labor market, and being able to hire good people, in especially the blue collar world, and it's harming the Social Security and the Medicare stuff. So we got to fix it.
Yeah, Social Security is another one that's just a complete mess. Again, just another wonderful thing the government got its tentacles around and ruined. I don't think that's going to get fixed. I really don't. I think I might, maybe I will, but probably my kids, they'll never see that. I think maybe I will, maybe. But my kids, no, especially my newborns, no.
Right. Yeah, who knows, man? I don't know.
Yeah, and anything the government touches turns to crap.
Usually.
Courts, military, that should really be it. Yeah, that's all I got for that. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of. I mean, that document basically tells the government what they can't do. I mean, the Constitution, it literally says that this protects me. It tells the government hands off of this stuff, and and somehow they just keep inching their way in. I mean, how long are we going to let them?
The founding fathers warned about that too. That it's going to get bigger. That's just the snowball effect of the faults that men and women have when they get power and they want to maintain that power. That's what happens, man. And so, I always tell people this country is still an experiment at only 250 years old. There's other cultures that are 5,000 years old and that have been through a lot. We haven't been through, we've been through a lot, but we still got a lot to go through. So it'll be interesting here. Any last thoughts about any of the things we talked about before we wrap it up here?
No, just, simply that, you got to allow people to speak their mind and learn that is their opinion. Even if you don't share it, they have the right to say it. And if you don't like it, tune it off, walk away. You can debate with them, sure. But violence is never the answer. And everybody should condemn it. It doesn't matter who's saying it, whether you're on the right, the left, the far right, the far left, right down the middle, doesn't matter. You got the right to speak your mind in this country. It's literally the First Amendment. It's there. It's number one for a reason. I know there's people that I'm close with that don't agree with my conservative views, but that's okay. I still love them the same. If they call me and they need help 3 hours from now, I'm going to be out the door helping them. They have their opinion just like I have mine, but it doesn't matter.
I'm assuming when you go on a call and you get into something that's violent, that you're not asking people for their voter registration card to make sure they're a conservative Republic before you go and put yourself in harm's way.
Yeah, don't care who you are. That is my job, is to just do that and that alone. I don't care what you call yourself, what you are, what your belief is. Doesn't matter. I'm there for one specific job and that job only. Everything else irrelevant to me.
Yep. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up because I know you got a couple babies that you're going to have to help your wife with. And I wanted to get into a little bit more about where we were with tariffs and the economy and interest rates and things like that. We'll have to do that again, maybe in a couple of weeks. I think the tariff stuff is still, I don't think it's made itself through the economy yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in a couple months.
That, and we'll see what the Fed cut the what they do 25 basis points today.
Quarter point, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see where that we'll see if that helps us out here by the time they come next month or so, and especially around Christmas time when families are wanting to buy gifts for children. We'll see what happens then with the tariffs, inflation, the cuts, if there's going to be any more, which people expect there to be more by the end of the year.
Right.
So yeah, I'd like to revisit that maybe December, January, maybe, and see where it's actually shaping. Because I think it was you who said give it 9-ish months from when we did this before. Basically from April 2nd, I think was when he enacted all these tariffs. So, that 9 months from then will be right around the new year. So we'll see where that kind of sets us up, because I'm still waiting on some of these trade deals to come through. And
right, exactly.
I don't know. I'm starting to get a little nervous myself with
there was
these
something that I read that China you would think would be hurting, but their exports have actually increased.
Yeah,
to the world, not just the United States.
I thought we would honestly be boxing them in by now. I think I said that with deals with Japan, Taiwan, India. But Moody, I don't know what's going on with Moody over there. It seems to be, I think there's a little bit of a rift with him and Trump at the moment, because I think he's leaning more towards Russia for whatever reason.
Right.
If that's the case, Russia's a whole nother story that we don't have time for right now. But if you really want to hurt Russia, sorry, Moody, we're coming down hard on you.
Right. Europe
tariff the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Tariff the hell out of India. I don't care, because it's going to hurt Putin and it's going to hurt the Kremlin.
You've got India, and you've got Europeans buying Russian oil. I mean, that just can't happen. They're basically funding the war in Ukraine and giving him more power and more life. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. That's something we should probably talk about. And there were some drones that were flying into Poland, Russian drones, and that happened like the day before, the day of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So, it wasn't talked about a lot. So there's some things that need to be looked at with him.
Because what happens with everything by the end of this calendar year, with the tariffs, with the inflation rate, everything comes full circle.
Right.
It's going to really set up the midterms for both Republicans and Democrats. So it's quite important what happens in the next 3 to 4 months.
Big time.
So we'll see where that kind of sets up. So I would like to revisit that, especially maybe in January. We'll see how this plays out, but it's definitely going to set up for midterms in 2026. Whether you're on the right or whether you're Democrat or Republican, it's definitely going to set you up one way or the other.
Right, for sure. It's going to be really interesting, these midterms, because it's going to get nasty, man. It's going to get nasty. All right,
Sadly, yes.
I'll let you rip.
All right.
Remember, dude, enjoy every second of the kids, the babies, because it goes by fast.
Blink of an eye.
All right, everybody, take care out there. Be safe, and hug your neighbor, hug your neighbor, hug your neighbor, hug your kids, man. Love everybody out there. God bless.